Hey guys, this is Jack. I'm at the Toronto Film Festival. This is actually the last day that I'm recording this video. I've seen 17 movies throughout the entire week, and it's just been very, very stressful and just a lot of emotions, like whirlwind emotions. But yeah, so it's been like a really fun time. I'm going to review a couple movies that I've seen at the festival. Some of them are going to be like the most popular ones, so I can just like really like get them out of the way. And then the rest of them I'll probably review at a later date or maybe just in a couple days. But for now, this is my review for Queer first. And Luca Guadagnino hasn't really like missed with me personally. I did like Suspiria on like the first watch, but then eventually I got around to like rewatching it again and it really spoke to me, and now it's like one of my favorites from him. And a lot of his movies like take a lot of like time to really like develop, and it gives you a lot of like space to like rewatch them again. Hence why I think Queer is one of those movies that you probably have to like rewatch over and over and over again to like really understand it. But at face value, I thought this movie was just bonkers and just straight up like crazy. And let me just like lay like the plot of this movie. I want to like give a little background behind the movie. I actually read the book a couple months ago, which is based on a short story by William Burroughs. And it's kind of like his real life story of how he fled from the US to another country and became a different man, and eventually became the writer of Junkie and Queer and Naked Lunch. But even before all that, Luca Guadagnino, his career has been just like taking off and has been doing a lot of like crazy movies here and there. Just this year, he did Challengers, which I really loved and is one of my favorite movies of the year. And again, Queer, it's kind of like a return to form with Luca Guadagnino, as he's kind of playing more of like a somber, quiet tone of the direction in this film, compared to the very loud, like energetic Challengers. So the plot of this movie is about a military man who flees from the US to Mexico City to just live a new life. And it's played by Daniel Craig, who is playing Lee, or the real person, William Burroughs, or William Lee Burroughs. And throughout like the first hour of the movie, you're following Lee as he's going from bar to bar, hanging out with younger men, having sex with younger men, and just really connecting with just younger men. And eventually he lays eyes on Alterton, played by Drew Starkey. And from there, like they start having like this really intimate and emotional relationship with each other, going back and forth between taking drugs and drinking and then just like walking around Mexico City. But eventually the film deviates from Mexico City onto the jungles of Mexico, where Lee is trying to find a drug called the Yahweh, or the Yaw drug, the Yahweh drug. Forget my pronunciation. But yeah, like basically they tried to find the Yahweh drug, and from there the film kind of deviates, turns into more of a psychedelia trip experience, akin to 2001: A Space Odyssey, with just more like queer undertones and overtones. And I think from there, the film kind of starts to fall apart for some people, but for me, like I really, really enjoyed it. And I really like took attention towards the direction of the second half of the film compared to like the first half, where it's pretty just straightforward. You're just following Lee and the other like supporting casts, including Jason Schwartzman, who plays his best friend, who's also gay, and he has like a fat suit in his like belly and all that. And he's really funny in it also as well. But yeah, like the first half of this movie is just really kind of bringing itself back to like Call Me By Your Name and like a bigger splash, where you're just following like a bunch of these characters through just a series of like days, hanging out in like places, exotic places, and just talking in like normal conversations and philosophical conversations. But then of course like the film deviates to more of kind of like Suspiria and a little bit more of like Bones and All, but like in a psychedelic way, not like completely in a horrific way. There are some moments where it does play around with like body horror, but it's also kind of just paying homage to David Cronenberg's Naked Lunch, which was also about William Burroughs' life, but with like body horror attached to it.
You a faggot?
And yeah, like I thought like a lot of like the themes of just being queer and just, you know, just being like someone who's completely detached away from like society. Again, like that's like Luca's motive, and like Aurora. He really played around with a lot of the editing and just like the cinematography. There's a lot of like wide shots, like weird kind of like Wes Anderson like soundstagey kind of like moments where you're following the character around and it's like symmetrical. And then there's other moments where the film gets like very like telenovela or like melodramatic with like the camera whips. And yeah, like I really like liked the art department section of this film. Again, like for me personally, like I understand people's criticisms towards the second half of this film because it does deviate a little bit away from like the source material, but it actually finishes the short book because the short book was like unfinished and was published in the 80s. And it seems like Luca wanted to like completely finish like the final act of this film and make it seem like kind of like a finished narrative for William Burroughs. And like the epilogue is very like Bardo, where you just like are just dropped into the final moments of Will Burroughs' life. But yeah, dude, like I fucking love this movie. Daniel Craig, his performance in this is like all-timer in my opinion. I know a lot of people are just going to say like, oh, well, No Time to Die is like his best like role, but nah, really, like I think this is like his best role in my opinion. And Drew Starkey is also really great, even though he says a little in some scenes, but like you can understand and like tell like what he's trying to like do with each scene with Daniel Craig, and their chemistry is like really, really, really like romantic and like sensual, and I really fuck with it. But yeah, like this is one of those movies that I think will be better when you watch it again. I'll be definitely watching it again. I don't know if it's coming out by the end of the year, but A24 has it, and I hope they do a really good job with campaigning Daniel Craig as best actor. I do think that right now he's not like in the top 5, but I really want him to be in like the top 5, like the only lone like nomination aside from Leslie Manville, who plays kind of like a crazy supporting role as like the witch doctor who gives Lee and Alderton the Yahweh drug. And from that scene alone, like her like scenes are really, really, really hilarious and also very like intense and like scary.
So this is Future Jack. I just wanted to like actually reiterate a little bit more about Queer, just to kind of like give a little bit context about the film, because it's been like a couple of days since I've thought about the film. It's still like a 5 out of 5 for me, personally, because I think it fully fleshes out like the short story that was unfinished long ago back in the 80s. I think Luca Guadagnino really delivers William Burroughs' own language onto the screen very, very well, in my humble opinion. And I think Daniel Craig as actor is very versatile, and he has a lot of range, depending whether it's like an action movie or a comedy or just a straight drama. And here he just completely plays like all sides of his character, especially since he's a drug addict throughout the entire film. But also, I think what's also really interesting about this film is the way the first half of the film starts out as like this like completely somber adventure film with Lee just adventuring around Mexico City from bar to bar, fucking men. There's also this really like cool moment where he has sex with Omar Apollo, and it's a really kind of like sensual scene where they walk into like a bar and Lee sees him, and right behind Omar Apollo's like viewpoint is a portrait of Jesus, I think like painted as kind of like a symbol of the heavenly attachment this nature is going to like bring upon towards Lee and Omar Apollo's character. And eventually it peters out to Lee finding Alderton and them having an adventure across Mexico City, and then eventually to the jungles. And then the jungles that's where the film starts to kind of turn, obviously into 2001's A Space Odyssey psychedelic adventure, like I mentioned in my past self a couple days ago. But yeah, like I think this movie, thinking about it more and more, it's winning me over. And again, I think the awards chances are really slim, especially since I think Daniel Craig is the only person who's going to get nominated for an Oscar. But again, that's just me, and I think that's a lot of people who've seen this film at TIFF or also at Venice. But I do think also if the Academy is really, really bold enough and brave, they can actually like max it out with like the categories. I think especially with cinematography with Mudaki, I don't know the pronunciation, but a really long name. And he also did the cinematography for Challenger. So the cinematography here is a little bit more like lighter, and it has a little more like white balance, and it's also playing around with Wes Anderson framing with like the symmetrical framing and then like wide shots. There's even a moment where in the beginning where Lee is trying to walk across to another bar, and he sees like a cockfight going on with like chickens, and from his viewpoint he sees Alderton and they like lock eyes, and it's like this weird kind of Mexican standoff kind of like framing. And aside from that, also the music in this is also really 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 great. It uses a lot of like contemporary music, which would piss off a lot of people, especially people who don't really like contemporary music in the past, history. But here it totally works because William Burroughs as an author was really obsessed with Nirvana and Prince. And Nirvana and Prince is played throughout the entire film, along with also New Order, Joy Division, and there's some other like Mexican songs played in the background. And I think also it's like really, really just very intricate with its musical choices. And even going further into the music, Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross are back for another score with Luca. And this one, the score is more straightforward. There's no like pulsing like bass drops like with Challengers, but the score is beautiful, and it really plays a lot into Lee's drug habits, Alderton's confessing love towards Lee, and just other characters around this entire universe. And yeah, like I think this film, going back to it or actually thinking about it for the past couple of days, has really kind of like gave me like a better understanding of what I was trying to like convey earlier with my past review or past self. So yeah, I'm gonna like transition back to the past self of me saying that I really love this movie. So yeah, let's get back to it. Let's go.
But yeah, like I really love this movie. I gave it like a 5 out of 5 on Letterboxd, and I'm keeping it this way because I think it's like one of the best films of the year. So I hope you guys enjoy this video, and yeah, peace out.